HotShot both had a hard time. They're playing, I mean, they're playing off, right? That's not what they're supposed to be doing right now. So LeBlanc ban comes through. EG, of course, making some smart choices there. The Jinx ban against Doublelift, though. So
interesting.
A couple of different adaptations.
Nidalee would probably be the last ban for EG unless they're planning on picking it for Pobelter. One thing I do want to note, again, though, even though it was mentioned in the feature, is just how intertwined these guys are and how well Snoopeh, Yellowpete, and Krepo actually know HotShotGG, because he was the one that saw potential in these guys way back in Season 2 when they formed as CLG.EU. And it's kind of crazy now that they're playing against each other in the LCS. HotShot's always had an eye for talent.
He has, and now we'll see what they go for with these last few bans, because Nidalee wasn't banned. Now, InnoX is a big Nidalee player. And if I'm EG, I let this go through and first pick it for InnoX. I realize it's not a common meta Season 4 pick, but this has been his comfort pick for all of Season 3.
If they let it through, then HotShot's going to pick it.
Yeah, if CLG doesn't pick that here, I'm surprised.
Well, I wonder. I mean, now that Evil Geniuses has said they don't care if HotShot has Nidalee, because we got to look at what else is actually on the table still. There's still the Shyvana and the Mundo in the top lane. Perhaps they could even try and go with both of those things if they wanted to try and put together their tank line.
Yeah, and of course, there's still the pecking order of AD carries. Of course, the Thresh first pick with Annie banned away, but Leona's still in the bunch. You've got still a lot of high priority picks to go through here. And CLG obviously taking their sweet time with this one. Okay, here we go. Elise locked in there. That's going to be Link in the jungle. We have seen Nientonsoh top lane, but that was like a year ago. Let's see what else they go for.
Yeah, they're taking their sweet time with all these potential picks. The Elise one is the safest pick. That's what we usually see picked at the top of these. And we've been talking about, like, maybe there's a world here where if enough of HotShotGG's champions get banned out, or if he doesn't do well enough. The end was flirting with disaster there. If he misclicked that Shyvana right afterwards, he wouldn't have got it. Those are standard picks for CLG. A world in which they actually want Link to play mid lane, and they just put HotShot in the jungle because they no longer feel like he's confident on that, and they just mess with the enemy's minds. They got 2 games left to try that.
We got 2 games left. We'll see if they can get this one out here, unless they have further issues and they just keep HotShot in there. It'll be part of their counter logic strategies. We got our jungler back, but actually that would be too direct.
Now, who needs their jungle back?
Got to keep switching it around. You never know. Of course, Snoopeh there looking at an Olaf. Of course, not many junglers picked over as well, so he gets, aside from Elise, his pick of the litter on this one. And Krepo, you know, back on a cover pick of Thresh as well. This is sort of, I feel like EG's bottom lane has been performing among the best for these guys, and they're getting a pretty good pick of what they're wanting to play. Yellowpete again on Caitlyn.
I think it's a good thing that they picked the Olaf at this point. I feel like one of EG's team comps yesterday when they had Kassadin and Yasuo in the same team, or even the next game when they had the Lee Sin in the top lane, was very low on just frontline in team fights. And especially since they're typically such a team fight focused grouping team, they're the ones that are going to need the tank line that can go in there first. Snoopeh, most likely on jungle. Olaf is going to go a long way to creating that front line.
Yeah, so this is a good setup then for EG, getting the beef there. Yellowpete, highest KD on his team so far. He's been putting up the best results, so he's setting him up on a long-range AD carry, and he can do what he can here. CLG now 20 seconds in. There's the hover on Nidalee. Not many people surprised, and they've gotten it. There we go, HotShot on comfort.
Let's see how many spears he can land this time. We got a mini game going last game about whether he was going to land those spears. You miss every spear you don't throw, I think is what he said after the game. Which
Wayne Gretzky
is somewhat true.
You miss every shot you don't take. You might as well try.
It's a Michael Jordan quote.
Maybe I'm just completely bad at sports.
I'm sure Wayne Gretzky said it as well.
Sure.
Yeah.
I'm just going to facepalm now. Let's move on to League of Legends, something I know a little bit more. CLG, 4 members of the lineup. We know everything but the AD carry choice, and of course, Doublelift took a sweet time to make that decision here, so EG is going to fill out their roster here.
Getting Leona at this point in the game feels like a bit of a steal, but that's because Krepo picked Thresh so early. I'm a little bit surprised, actually, that they would have let Leona go by the wayside. Leona gets banned a lot against Krepo, and he just wants to control the Thresh. He did have a strong Thresh game yesterday, but it's giving up a lot to Aphromoo, I think.
And they've actually kind of given the chance to EG as well here. I figure they knew they wanted Nidalee to come through, so Kha'Zix got locked in here for, I'm assuming, the mid lane. Pobelter wanted this matchup the whole time.
This is going to be a good matchup for Pobelter. I know that Kha'Zix can kind of... He's one of the people who can catch Nidalee and definitely punish her in the laning phase.
Yeah.
Pobelter had a very inconsistent / bad day yesterday. And also, what we previously talked about in this lineup, EG has a very strong front tank line for this matchup. So this is a very good lineup, I think, for EG.
Oh, good job on champ select then for these guys, putting together a team that works. Aphromoo, looking at his choices, of course, it's going to be 4 Doublelift after all. And you're kind of cycling through a lot of the things that Doublelift does play. Big Ezreal player throughout Season 3. Draven, one of his high-tier picks in the new season as well. Lucian, though, still available. And I'm surprised that champion...
Lucian's a tough sell against Mundo and Olaf. Doublelift's going to want something that is fairly safe and that can kite fairly well. He's actually been very down on Ezreal as a champion lately, but I think just because of all the things Doublelift has to escape from and the somewhat limited amount of peel that CLG will have from the rest of the team, since Aphromoo's on a kind of a dive-in support, he's going to want to fend for himself and be more of a poker here.
Yeah, that makes sense. You've got HotShot, of course, on a poker as well, so they've got a lot of good synergy there in the lineups. Of course, the champions all locked in here. We're going to have a, I guess, more conventional pick finally for InnoX, right? His Yasuo didn't work, his Lee Sin didn't work. Well, now he's on Teleport Mundo. No stranger to seeing that. Yeah, shocking. He just shows up there. It's going to work pretty well. Of course, in the end, they're back on Shyvana. He played him actually in the last game. And, yeah, CLG in the end, last time he played was on Shyvana. Yeah, he was
doing well. He's just played already today, the Shyvana versus Mundo matchup.
Yeah.
And I actually don't think that Nien did the best job in the matchup against Balls in that game. I think Shyvana should beat up on Mundo heavily early on in the game. He was able to take the turret, but he wasn't able to push his advantage that much afterwards. InnoX is definitely going to have to play very conservative at the start of this one.
Yeah, and so I want to see what these guys end up doing with this one. But before we get into the game, let's take a look at who you guys think is going to win this one. And according to LOLesports.com, 59% of you think that EG are going to be the superior minds in the next match, break their 0-win streak so far, and get themselves on the scoreboard.
Yeah, so CLG sitting at 1-1, Evil Geniuses sitting at 0-2. This game means a lot for these guys early on in the season. I think the champion selection went more in EG's favor, and that CLG was then having to react to what EG had already done. But we got to let this play out. Champion select is pretty close in this game.
Yeah, and really a lot of it, I think, does come out to how these individual players play. You've got Nien, who's held his own pretty well throughout in general. HotShot went unkilled as Nidalee in the first game against Dignitas, and Dig are a team that generally are very good at picking up kills, if nothing else. And so to navigate that team leads some hope for that CLG lineup, and we'll see if they can make up for, I guess, a slightly inferior champ select.
All right, so they go with the double barrier, of course. HotShotGG doesn't want to get heavily aggressed on by Pobelter, but we'll see how much he has to say in that case. He got beasted in lane by High in the last game, so he has to recover and have a better showing this one.
Let's see where these guys go with this one. So tank lines spread out, standard level 1 setup for these guys, standard lanes as well, but we've seen people switch after that one. HotShot, of course, chilling. These guys are going to be probably fighting each other in the mid lane, and they're getting accustomed with staring each other down.
Here's an interesting thing for supports. Aphromoo has started with the Relic Shield, and Krepo almost never builds gold per 10 items. He is adamant about starting with the Dorn Shield because it should give him the presence and power in the lane. Whether or not they can punish Aphromoo for starting with his gold per 10 item, even though it's actually going to scale into a tankier overall build from Aphromoo, we'll have to see. Personally, I am a fan of the Relic Shield. I think, especially on Leona, once you can get those upgrades, the gold generation it adds plus the tankiness it gets to you is just worth it. I think since they're against Thresh and Caitlyn anyway, they're going to get pushed in. I think he's going to be all right and be able to generate that gold.
Yeah, and by and large, the players I've seen, at least in the Western Hemisphere, actually stick with the Relic Shield line and actually upgrade all the way to face the mountain. I've seen Korean players will start with any of the GP10s, but then sell partway through for Ascension. So kind of different emphases for from the talisman. These teams. Yeah, for the extra speed boost here. But other interesting note is actually as CLG invades in. Ooh, actually, this is not good for CLG. Link and Nien forced to run away. Krepo, nice opening there. Good flay. They've actually stopped the early buff take, and Snoopeh and InnoX going to go back in for their own blue.
Yeah, this is strange. You can see Doublelift and Aphromoo didn't want to do the same thing. They're kind of just back and forth in the lane. While Link got completely shut down by Krepo and Yellowpete, at least at the start of the game. This is trading jungle power for AD carry power. At the moment, Yellowpete and Krepo are trying to shut down Link and Yen, whereas Doublelift is free farming. If we go by the traditional CLG strategies, this is a good trade, and that's just their mindset, why they didn't really help Link that much, and they let him get harassed, whereas there was no harass whatsoever on Snoopeh.
Yeah, absolutely. He got a pretty easy route for his own blue buff, and InnoX actually going to stay with him here and share experience for a good while. Of course, Teleport Mundo can get back to lane whenever he wants, but level 2 on these guys. And here he goes, finally to the top lane. Nien, maybe misjudged that camp.
The white is very strong at level 1. You should not do it that often. I know Dyrus had a battle with that guy the other day. It almost took him out, and then he had to go back to base, but I think Dyrus started with a Dorn Shield.
I remember Dyrus starting losing fights with Wolves, too, back in, what, Season 2?
Yeah, there's been a few executions. There's no broken shard in this game, though.
Unfortunately, EG did knock him out. Thanks in part to the Lizard camp. EG, though, you're seeing the aggressive lane right now be the mid lane here. Of course, the 2v1 down bottom also pushing in, but this is the matchup that EG basically wanted. They let HotShot get Nidalee, and Pobelter said, all right, I'll play Kha'Zix into it. So that's I think, a big point for EG here.
I really wonder how slow this game is going to be overall, because CLG and the old CLG.EU, which is now Evil Geniuses, traditionally have been some of the slowest playing teams in the world. They generally both lane very strong and want to take things to late game. So now that they can actually play each other, I wonder if one of them is going to try to surprise the other with some aggressive play.
Well, I know one of the last few times these guys fought each other, CLG brought Promote and teleported around the map when they were playing it. It was a while ago, but that was back in Korea. Then it was actually CLG.EU. And CLG NA did win that one. I forget if they played at MLG a couple years back as well.
That was the, was that the second OGN season of all time, I believe?
I think so. I know
really
it was the Frost
on.
one, I think. Either way, CLG NA and EG going to push through and get respective turrets down. Both blue buffs now for a little bit less turret coverage. So
yeah, these guys just doing the straight-up trade. They're both allowing their AD carries to play safe and farm a lot in the early game. Now the question becomes, does CLG continue pushing the second turret, roam, and does EG decide to take the dragon? Both we're seeing dragon take and roaming.
Wow, so both teams moving sort of southwards on the map, and EG are going to take this dragon pretty much uncontested, but CLG have fully grouped towards the mid lane. Nien spots this. It's going to be a 5v4 if CLG gets there in time. There's actually EG trying to run away from this one. Good gank by CLG. Damage was not there to take dragon, and now the fight begins. The flash in, Krepo. Oh, you're in a bad spot. Here's a teleport from Mundo, but it's still a 5v4. Doublelift just gets jumped on by InnoX. Can he survive this one? Trying to survive. I don't think he's going to. InnoX picks up one, and the fight is going to continue now. CLG forced to run. HotShot gets hit. Oh, Pobelter picks up a kill. HotShot's going to go down 4 for 1 to Evil Geniuses.
Well, that is a little bit of early game aggression if we haven't seen it. CLG decided to roam all the way across the map and try and start something at Dragon, but things just went absolutely horribly wrong for them as they give up 4 early kills and a Dragon. That's great for EG. Let's take a look at exactly how this happened. So they all flashed in and committed, except everything got dumped onto Krepo. And I think one of the keys is in the top there, how InnoX teleported in basically next to Doublelift. So Doublelift was not able to get involved in the fight. And early game AD carries, contrary to popular belief, are very strong in fights like this. You could see Pete got a red buff early and was also able to help out things. But it was really just InnoX finding the perfect positioning on that teleport for the ward.
And so now InnoX is basically huge. He's got a 6-minute Giant's belt, plus Doran Shield, plus boots. I don't envy Nien in this matchup. I feel like life's going to be hard for poor Shyvana, but we'll see what pans out.
Well, especially because Nien, like InnoX, was trapped in a 1v2 for a while and did not get farm early. He also had to back early on against the white, and the gold percentage discrepancy is just too huge here.
And Nien at half HP getting chased down. This is surely going to be Shyvana falling over. It is. EG making a visit back to the top lane to ensure InnoX will win this matchup, and now they get to pressure the turret.
Absolutely. They might just start a bit of a fast push here, knowing they have Caitlyn and maybe some extra wave clear from Pobelter depending on how he decides to do his skill order. They can pull off a bit of a fast push here before CLG gets spear ups in HotShotGG to hold them back. This is a fantastic start for EG.
Speaking of holding him back as well, HotShot already jumps for an early chain vest, not chain vest, but cloth armor as well. So even if we look at Nidalee trying to scale up and do more damage, a defensive opening for HotShot here to survive the lane, because hey, Pobelter got a kill and assist and a dragon in the early fight, but the dive here down to the bottom lane, Krepo down low, Aphromoo dangerous as well, is going to get out of turret range just in time. Yellowpete, he is going to fall down, nice repel, Doublelift his aggro. CLG now 3v1 on Krepo, will they stay? No, they're going to
Too many minions.
Yeah.
Doublelift has taken a whole bunch of damage, and that's actually a little dangerous for him.
There are enough minions to keep that one alive, and Nien, oh no, please no. Nien, rearrange those letters, and EG says 9, you're going down.
Well, that
And
lane isn't
CLG,
going well.
No, not in the slightest, but HotShot's going to show up. He's going to have his turn on the top lane in the 1v2.
Yeah, this is just total domination by EG on one side and a little bit of struggle on the bottom side, but overall, I really think this is going towards Evil Geniuses here. CLG had a very well executed turret dive, but EG had an equally strong turret dive in the top lane, and I feel like the Mundo farm, especially on a lower damage AD carry such as Ezreal, is going to be nearly impossible for CLG to deal with for at least the next 40 minutes.
Ooh, a little bit of a... He tried to dodge the cleaver, but HotShot's still on the chase. Can he pick up InnoX, though? Down to 300 health, but Snoopeh's here! Uh-oh, snooping around in the brush, and HotShot's going to go down. Snoopeh 2-0-4. These guys picked up a much better game compared to last time.
Snoopeh and InnoX playing some tag out right there. He runs into the brush, hits the guy on the side of the ring, he jumps in and finishes off HotShotGG. That's just a fantastic start so far for Snoopeh and InnoX. It's a level 6 Olaf. He has had a bit of inconsistent play. We said in the pregame that InnoX had to improve here. He played very squishy champions yesterday. He did the AD Lee Sin, where he ended up having to max W because he was falling behind in the lane. He had the Yasuo game, where he had to go Blade of the Ruin King instead of the normal Infinity Edge static Shiv build. But this game, he's on a standard champion, which is something he actually doesn't do that often, but it is absolutely working for him.
Yeah, he's doing an amazing job, and looking around the map at other things going on, Link actually took his own blue buff, HotShot apparently not needing it, or not able to throw enough javelins anyway, and Link, level 6 only at 9.5 minutes. That's a pretty late mark for a jungler, too.
Yeah, and the worst part for CLG is that Nien is level 4.
Oh, dear.
At 9.5 minutes. Now he's 5.
Woo!
Good
Leveled
work.
up.
He almost has his Dragon's Descent, so he's almost able to run away from Mundo more efficiently. But until that time, he's in trouble.
He's got a Doran's Blade, so a little bit more damage coming through for this guy. Actually, no, he started with that one. Negatron Cloak still there. No new items for Nien. Somehow managed to stay up in minions, though. Like, this minion gap decreased since then, but Nien, in the middle of the minion wave, I don't know if this is too good for him. Actually, look at the damage there dealt to InnoX. Giant minion wave helping that one. InnoX actually forced to hide a little bit there, Ignite, lowering a lot of the regen.
Yeah, I also think the minions were a little bit underestimated by InnoX there. Yeah. Pretty smart farming by Nien, knowing that he could stand his ground down 2 levels. He's going to need to do a lot more smart stuff like that if he wants a chance here.
Well, you got to try to outsmart the Evil Geniuses somehow, and we'll see what CLG can do with this
one.
We
talk about who could match wits and who was the smarter team.
Well, I don't know if there's a Warwick here that might be at their wits' end.
Yeah.
Let's see. Nothing.
No Warwick.
Completely.
Don't talk
I
about
said
wits'
if
end.
there was. Okay, fine. CLG grouping up down here.
Freak.
What?
You can't just make up something and be like, and if that
You
happened.
talked about wits, and I just... Forgiven bought a wits' end on Lucian once. I'm just grasping at straws now.
He did. Is there a Lucian in this game?
No.
No.
No, not at all. I'm grasping at nothing. CLG rotating around the map, dragging up in 40 seconds. Snoopeh, he's actually making a lot of rotations around this map. He's got kind of low minion kills, but he's certainly been making up for it in champions.
Yeah, and if there's a thing that might save CLG here, as usual, it would be Doublelift's farm. We said at the very start of the game how CLG actually made that choice to not help out their jungler, but instead just let Doublelift go and farm the top lane. And also because of Link's dives in the bottom lane, he has accumulated a bit of a lead. He's going to have to get to a max item build sooner rather than later. His play and Aphromoo's play is actually what extended that game against Cloud9 and almost brought them back.
Yeah.
They need to play even better in this one if they want to come back.
We'll see if they can do it. Cocoon lands on a Yellowpete, but it's a bit outnumbered. CLG's going to go in now for Snoopeh, though. Half HP, pops the ulti. Aphro's still chasing him, but he's in the middle of the enemy team. Ult's not going to hit much of anything. Forced to run away. Pobelter picks up the kill, though. Does not have Evolved Wings. Looks like that was Q there, and now Link forced to run. Double does not Arcane Shift very far away, and InnoX is barreling down. That is a kill picked up again by Snoopeh. Link on the run. HotShot nowhere to go either. That's going to be another kill picked up by Pobelter. 10-2, and EG just dominating that fight.
And this is exactly the type of game EG excels in. When they actually are able to get an early lead, they play as a team so well, and they know exactly when to engage, that if they're stronger, the game is just easy for them. They knew the Dragon was up, they grouped around it, and they caught CLG in the right spot. You could see they already had a pink ward and were waiting in it. They then used their front line and were able to take a lot of the aggro from CLG. InnoX and Krepo took most of the brunt, things got low, and Pobelter could jump around and start executing things. Then, of course, Krepo was with the team. It's all about communication. The instant he landed that play, the rest of the team was able to fly in behind it. There wasn't much CLG could do about this one since they were already behind, and EG was playing so smart.
Yeah, well played by EG, and InnoX already with a Sunfire cape as well, so that lane's not going to go bad anytime soon either.
Oh, dear.
A lot of things in their favor.
Yeah, especially that Ravenous Hydra that we have on Pobelter already.
Oh, man.
That's going to help them push as a team, too, because one of the keys for Kha'Zix and how we could see his resurgence is because of this Ravenous Hydra. Just as a random aside, the first person to build Ravenous Hydra on Kha'Zix in LCS was actually Chuper.
Yes.
And everyone started making fun of him for it because everyone was doing Tear of the Goddess Manamuna then. And now he's got the last laugh because he's played all over the place.
And here we go. InnoX now forced to run in the 1v2, and looks like this time Link gets to laugh back because that's a kill picked up there. InnoX falling over. And CLG still actually defending. So for what it's worth, though, you know, in CLG's win over Dig, I actually complimented them for having good strategic play in that kills went back and forth, but they had some really smart pushes and whatnot. And to their credit, CLG have kept turrets equal, of all things. That while EG's picked up a whole bunch of kills, they haven't gotten much other than dragons out of it. And I gotta say, that's at least something for CLG.
Well, I think it was you who actually pointed out that it looked like they were trying to play like CJ Entis Blaze in that game.
Yeah.
They were trying to avoid as many fights as possible and then siege turrets. They didn't have the polish that a team like CJ Blaze would have, but they were really trying to pull it off. In this game, I guess it is a little CJ Blaze-esque because they usually fall behind in lanes. Now, it is usually their AD carry and support that fall behind in lanes, and then they have to work things back. Unfortunately, though, it's normally someone like Flame on Nidalee who's doing much better than HotShotGG in this one, and the spears can start turning things around. HotShot's going to have to get a lot more farm if they want that strategy to work again.
And as we mentioned before, he has already taken the detour towards the Seeker's arm guard, so a long way to go until HotShot's javelins are super relevant in this one. EG already starting the siege again with a split pusher. It's going to be Pobelter heading to the bottom, with the rest of the team saying, look, CLG group towards mid, everyone sit here, and then EG kind of spreads back to the split push.
And EG groups a lot. It's very difficult for them to deal with since CLG doesn't actually have very strong wave clear here, and they're not going to have too much wave clear anytime soon. Doublelift didn't go with a normal static Shiv type 80 carry build. He's going for his old Tear of the Goddess Bloodthirster Ezreal, which takes an extremely long time to get going. If he gets his Iceborne Gauntlet, CLG's plan is to play the kite and poke game. But they just don't have that yet, which is why EG grouping and split pushing right now is great, because CLG just can't push the lanes back fast enough.
And you know, I was wondering when Blue Ezreal is going to come back. When everyone's playing a bunch of I have to walk at you bruisers, who I feel like would be slow to Iceborne Gauntlet, like leave it to CLG, especially against Evil Geniuses, to play a slow enough game that Ezreal can get the items. And then Doublelift can go be a magician and kite everything.
Doublelift is hoping it gets to that.
Well, yeah. He might.
As of now, I mean, 10 kills at 16 minutes is a fast game.
Yeah.
So as far as Evil Geniuses is concerned, both of the times they have met around Dragon have been perfect times to shut down CLG. And this is actually pretty smart scouting by EG. They recognize that CLG lately has been a much more objective focused team. They're trying to rotate better and really make it to the turrets and the dragons, but EG is just better at it. And they rotated to the dragons first. They've caught CLG in a couple of bad spots, and that's where the majority of their kills got given.
Ooh, Yellowpete, Lantern, he's done 108. Ooh, the barrier keeping him alive, though. I couldn't even say all the words, but Yellowpete dropped dangerously low. And that was actually, as you mentioned, sort of one of the things that really was good about Evil Geniuses, even back in the day, is that they were a teamwork-based team with good shot calling, good strategic play. And this time around, they actually started getting ahead in their lanes early on, and it's meant so much for them. This is EG looking actually good, finally here in the NA LCS, with good play calling on top of good lanes.
I absolutely agree on this one. They do have to make sure that they don't give CLG too much time to farm up, though. They have stagnated a little bit in between the Dragons. It seems like they know how to pull off that play, but their split pushing hasn't granted them any turrets, and it hasn't given them much damage in that middle lane. The middle turret holds the most strategic power right now for Evil Geniuses to get down, but CLG's defended it quite well, despite not having substantial wave clear.
And even just outside of turrets, EG haven't found like buffs to steal or anything. The last blue buff, I think, at least went to CLG. Yeah, I remember HotShot wearing it. The red buff being worn by Link right now. It's just the turret game and the dragon game that EG's playing. There's a decent amount of ward coverage in the jungle. Just, I feel like a team that's up 10-3 would have more of the map covered in vision.
Yeah, you would expect that. There's a Sightstone completed by Krepo, but they've already went for 3 sweepers. Yeah. It's a fair amount of sweepers. They like to kind of wait and see where CLG is going. One thing to note, when you're playing against CLG and they're behind, they have very specific tendencies that are fairly easy to track. You know Doublelift is going to sit in the lane and try and farm. They're not actually going to do too much roaming, and you most of the time know where they're going to be. So EG doesn't have to worry too much about warding where CLG is because they should already know.
Doing a good job of that one. EG already on the rush now on this dragon. CLG actually nowhere around for this one. So Evil Genius is going to pick up even more cash money for themselves. 3-0 on dragons now, and a 4,000 gold lead. And to talk about the vision control a little bit more, Krepo has already invested in the Oracle's lens. The upgrade for his red trinket actually granted him 1 extra ward kill a second ago as he swept the mid lane like bottom brush and then walked into another one and swept that with the Oracle's buff.
Smart move there by Krepo. So it's more that they're trying to stop CLG from having wards than they're trying to see them themselves. And Pobelter is at the split push game again. We'll see if he can make more headway on that turret, because it's still in the case where Doublelift is building up his items. He's got his Manamune finished now. Next up is probably his Iceborne Gauntlet. And if he completes that, he'll be able to at least kite Mundo a little bit better. Won't necessarily be able to kite away from Snoopeh, because when he has his Ghost and his Ragnarok on, there's no stopping that guy.
Good luck with that one. For 5 seconds, he's immune to your Iceborne Gauntlet. But up until that point, and after it, Doublelift at least has a slightly better chance at this one. Evil Geniuses, they're still looking at that same mid lane, though. We talked about mid lane turret being important, but they're not really making any headway here. And you can just see how confident Doublelift is. He's sitting there face-tanking minions, kind of sees the opposing champion, says, no, I'm pretty sure I can get you here. EG making the chance for the blue buff. They do grab it there. So finally, something else stolen. I believe that went to Snoopeh.
No, it was actually Pobelter who was able to secure it, which is exactly what they wanted here. Pobelter wants to be able to spam all of his spells here and maybe create more of a split push edge, but there's a catch!
Stun onto Krepo, the dive on into, they have the damage, play and box and flash, and he's going to be alright. Doublelift in the front line, Snoopeh on the chase. Arcane Shift keeping him alive. Caitlyn, he's going to be alright. I believe he burned flash for that one, but he was not going to get hit by an Olaf axe. However, the fight just disengaged, burning summoners.
Yeah, pretty high-level fight we got to see there. Both of these teams have a lot of disengaged potential, especially CLG. You can see what they were thinking with their team composition. Lots of poke. If a few of those Nidalee spears would have landed, they could have netted themselves a kill. And even though Aphromoo seems like he's an all-in support, that long-range lockdown actually lines things up for the poke to come through. They just need to not fall so far behind in the early game, and this might actually be working.
Jumping on Doublelift down to 1/3 HP just from Pobelter's full combo. Imagine if someone else participated in that fight. Of course, we saw Link go down a second ago.
Doublelift left.
No, he'd be down a single lift, maybe even no lifts at all. And then CLG would be sad. But of course, we did see a little bit ago, Link is dead. Pobelter soloed him out a little while ago, but this push still going in the mid lane. Nidalee and Ezreal both missing from this, so EG going to get 2 turrets off of this push. And that's the first sign of really good openings now for these guys in a little while.
Yeah, it was just more good grouping by EG, and specifically Pobelter, who got some damage down. But let's actually take a look at this one, how quickly Pobelter just obliterated Link before that push happened. It's the scary Kha'Zix time. When he has the last Whisper, and there's no armor to speak of on Link, those types of things can happen. It wasn't just that helped him with that push. It was how low he got Doublelift as well. Kind of a one-man wrecking crew.
Yeah, absolutely incredible play. Pobelter doing a very good job with this lane, and it seems like that plan from Champ Select to say, let's give Kha'Zix a free lane has worked out very nicely. Pobelter still topping his team in kills at this point. He had 6 coming into the day, has 4 more now, so he's done well. We've called him a wild card, saying he's inconsistent sometimes, but right now he's consistently killing the enemy champions.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with this one. Mercury treads 2 to try and avoid getting locked down. If he gets caught by an odd cocoon, he might still be able to stay alive. HotShot has been coming back a little bit in this game, at least farm-wise, but he's still going with a... I think he's going to go with the Morellonomicon here to try and slow down Mundo's healing a little bit. That's going to diminish the damage potential of his spears, but I think it's going to be a good choice. Oh, look out.
Doublelift, he does get pulled in here, pops the barrier early on, has nowhere to really go right now. Leona ulti, not going to keep Doublelift alive. Down he goes.
Yikes.
EG in control of the top jungle now.
See, that's the roaming that Evil Geniuses has. That's why they have 3 sweepers, and that's also them just playing on the weaknesses of Doublelift. They knew that even though Doublelift didn't have strong ward control in his jungle, he would be greedy enough to want to get the red buff by himself without protection. And EG capitalizes. Now they're pushing another turret.
And 10 seconds of 4v4 in the top lane while Pobelter pushes bottom. The dive on his Snoopeh gets caught up, but takes a lantern back home. Yellowpete's going to be safe as well here. Bottom lane second tier turret does go down. That means 6 now for Evil Geniuses. And Doublelift's back alive with an ulti.
Yeah, Doublelift tries to clear away some of these lanes, but you can see CLG is getting suffocated a little bit. I do think EG is continuing their pressure actually quite well in this game. They're finding a couple kills and then immediately after going for an objective. This is the experience kicking in right now for EG and them just knowing how League of Legends works.
Now they've done a very good job of keeping this one going their way. 50 seconds until Dragon. Ward coverage actually mostly expired in the top jungle. We tend to see teams start looking at least toward Baron, whether to beta fight or take it like outright as we get closer towards the end of the game when the 6 sort of outer and second tier turrets are dead. And I want to know what EG goes to this one next. Doublelift is still scaling up, but despite his farm not having the best game,
oh no,
Pobelter going to make his life pretty difficult. He gets over the wall. Oh man.
Really slick escape right there.
Yeah.
Pobelter jumped early because he was predicting Doublelift would shift backwards, but the patience of Doublelift allowed him to save his arcane shift and use it over the wall to safety.
Well played, Doublelift. Not his flashiest play. I feel like the Vayne 1v2s look cooler, but regardless, a very good effect for him.
Yeah.
CLG
it's hard to
now,
make flashy plays when you're 1 in 3 Ezreal.
It can be difficult. You never know. You can press E. It's kind of flashy, but it's not really the same spell.
More of a shift.
Yeah, it's a shifty play.
Stop.
Not nearly as catchy. Pobelter still lurking around. HotShot, though, on the split push. He hasn't changed a bit since Season 2. Getting that farm going. But unfortunately, a Dr. Moon is going to show up from the side and kind of stop him from doing this. You can see that. Actually, yeah, Link, you're not going to get that one.
It was a nice effort by Link. He had the timer on the dragon, but obviously EG is keeping very exact timers as well. If they would have been about 10 seconds late on that, then they wouldn't have been able to catch him red-handed, but they did, and it extends the gold lead for EG quite easily.
And EG continuing to extend their gold lead, taking over the jungle. Blue buff taken away. Doublelift 2 seconds late on the ulti. Actually tags both blue buffs. That's kind of cute. I didn't. Okay, good angle on that one. Yeah, for what it's worth. I mean, it was random, but hey. EG still in control though. They've taken the buffs away. They've actually captured enemy champions at the buffs. The dragon's been theirs, and now it's just the next step for these guys. They're still kind of forced to stop the split push, but Link actually
really aggressive move here.
And the flay backwards, though. The jump in on Krepo. Stun on the Snoopeh. He pops ulti for that one. CLG is still alive, and now Mundo plus Nidalee going to force their way across the map to join this fight. Doublelift still getting slowed. Rand would slow him down as well. Doublelift, can you get away from this one? Has to flash the wall, and barely does. Life-stealing on the race to keep him alive, but Nien's got nowhere to go. He's going to fall down. InnoX shows up just to last hit the champion. Afro tanks for his AD carry. Good play there.
You can see that CLG wanted to start that fight because Pobelter was not near, but they're just a little bit too weak, and EG was able to play the disengage game very well. They're now going for the Baron, and there's a lot of CLG that is very much alive. It's going to be all about not getting caught out by spears and also preventing Link from jumping in for a miracle steal. If anything lets CLG back in this game, it would be a Baron steal, which is why Link is trying so hard for this one.
HotShot losing health. Pobelter there to zone out the rest of the champions as well. This is unlikely for Counter Logic Gaming as Evil Geniuses keep taking this Baron down. That's going to be theirs. No miracle steal from CLG. 5-man Baron for Evil Geniuses.
Yeah, a rather chaotic attempt by Evil Geniuses, but they played it quite well. They were able to zone everyone on CLG away from the fight, and they were specifically able to keep the vision out of the Baron area. So any attempt that CLG was making for that steal was completely blind. That's why Doublelift's ultimate was so late in the attempt.
It's still a nice try, I guess, all the same. 2 late ultis here for Doublelift, trying to steal away neutral objectives. Evil Genius is now 13-3 in this game. And really, InnoX and Snoopeh, I think they kind of started it all. They got a ton of control over Nien's lane. InnoX creating a bunch of pressure, and then Pobelter has just been wreaking havoc throughout this game. Just picking up random people.
Still only 4-0-1, but I think the fear of where Pobelter might be has been creating a lot. Just the fact that he wasn't in a fight made CLG kind of lose their minds and go for an unsafe initiation.
Yeah, he was a bit of an unseen threat throughout a lot of this game when he wasn't laning. CLG...
Is Unseen Threat one of his skill names?
Passive.
That was clever.
Thank you. Pobelter, though, on the bottom lane split push. Happy with just the Last Whisper and Ravenous Hydra going a little bit more tanky. You mentioned the Merc Treads before, but the GA pretty much guaranteeing not much going to go sour for Pobelter in these team fights.
Yeah, absolutely not. And it just makes their front line even tankier. It makes things extremely difficult for CLG to pull off. What CLG wants here is they want HotShot to be able to poke EG down before a fight happens. There's not any real self-healing on EG, and they could try and stop the siege by landing a few good spears. But HotShot doesn't have the power, and the initiation is just coming now.
What a hardcore engage by Krepo. He's got turret aggro, though, but he's all right with this one, diving on through with his locket. Burns the shield just now. Doublelift forced to run away, getting slowed down. InnoX in the front line. Still no Iceborne Gauntlet yet for the AD carry, so no cutting potential whatsoever. Inhib turret goes down. Stun onto InnoX. EG fully in control right now. The Javelin's only getting some of Yellowpete's health. Not nearly the shots that you would want here from HotShot.
And InnoX was just standing in front of the entire CLG damage line and blocking things so that EG could take that turret as easily as possible. This game has gone quite sour for CLG, and it's, you know, quite an accomplishment for EG right now because they had a really bad first day.
They really did.
0-2, and this could be, if they continue to move on here, the first win that either shard of the old Evil Geniuses organization picks up in season or in the 2014 season.
It's looking likely right here, and honestly, EG hoping it's the first of many. And I gotta say, not only is the team kind of showing a lot better, but the two guys I think who had the hardest time, InnoX and Snoopeh, both really put up a much better performance this time. The InnoX teleport at the beginning of that game to just massacre the Dragon teamfight when he teleported behind Doublelift. Huge play there by him, and he's having a much better time at this one. And CLG now missing an inhibitor, and Evil Geniuses, they've recalled to regroup and start their push again.
Yeah, and I'm thinking back to the Cloud9 game actually for CLG and how they actually pulled back in that one pretty well. But we mentioned before the game, what kind of mindset or mentality is CLG going to come into this game with? Whether they're going to be right on top of their game or whether they're going to be a little bit tilted, because the end of that Cloud9 game was so abrupt.
Yeah.
I do feel like they have not quite recovered mentally from that loss to Cloud9. There's so much pressure that goes into playing a team like Cloud9, just titans of the North American LCS, that when they almost beat them, only to lose, or felt like they were almost beating them, then to lose in like 7 more minutes. They just didn't carry any momentum towards this Evil Geniuses game right from the get-go. A 5 or 6 minute Dragon fight just set them back from there, and I don't think they've mentally recovered.
And you've got to figure, you know, this whole CLG lineup at this point, I take that back, HotShot's back there. I figure, like, if anyone's going to be an emotional leader for CLG, it's HotShot, who's been and like done and seen it all. He's like, I feel like if there's any force that keeps them on track, it would be him.
He tries. I mean, HotShot used to be the most popular streamer. He was kind of the father of League of Legends streaming in a sense.
Yeah.
He's an emotional fellow.
That's
a lot of the times. I can see
true.
When he starts doing poorly, things not going quite that well for CLG.
Well, and right now, briefcases are making CLG a little bit sad. Got to dodge away from all that poke. It seems like a lot of these doing more damage than Nidalee's javelins. HotShot trying to get the damage off InnoX, happy just to tank them and regen with his early Warmog Spirit Visage.
Yeah, I feel like on this siege in particular, if Krepo lands another death sentence, there will be almost no hesitation for them to go in. Guardian Angels are up, Mundo's ultimate is up, everyone is kind of just ready to go, no matter what CLG throws back at them. Even HotShot is low on mana, so the spears to defend are not going to be coming for much longer.
Couple more left in the mana pool there. Shield coming out. Yellowpete going to start attacking this turret right now. Down to 3-4 hits or so, and the damage still coming across to CLG. Logic Gaming trying to wave clear over and over again. Doublelift using his ultis. poke still coming through, and this turret is slowly dying.
That Lantern would have been the team fight start because HotShot was actually going straight back to base, and Link had just visited as well. EG is using the Lantern on top of AD carry siege strategy, where if anyone decides to go for the AD carry, he just clicks the Lantern. It's a very efficient way of getting turret damage down. Additionally, got those 3 Caitlyn traps that are stopping a counterattack.
Okay, and here we go. What else can happen in this fight? The inhibitor turret does go down. EG again on the siege. InnoX jumped on. He's going to pop the ulti. And CLG again forced to disengage. Krepo boxes, but no one's going to be touching that one for now. But it's going to be the inhib going down. The jump in from Pobelter. Can he get the damage? There goes one. It's going to be the rest of the fight coming up. Who's going to go down next? CLG is still on the run, trying to get away from this one. It's just going to be the one kill, but Evil Geniuses now in control of CounterLogic Gaming's base. CLG trying to defend now in the 4v5, but one Nexus turret's already gone down.
It's just a massive meat that EG has moving towards CLG, and they just don't have the damage to keep them back. This is a big push.
Though both turrets dead now. HotShot trying to run barrier heal. Pobelter forcing his GA, but that is it. Nien in the front line, but this is not going to be nearly enough. Nien falls down. Only 3 members left for CLG. Make that 2. Make that just Aphromoo trying to do whatever he can, and that's just going to be the game. Evil Geniuses picking up their first win in the North American LCS.
And you can see from Snoopeh's reaction how much that meant for them to get this win. They had a very poor start yesterday. We could not say more about that, but this was their most convincing victory in game by far. 16 kills to 3 against really old classic rivals in CLG. Snoopeh feels good about that one.
The rest of the team does. They're all smiles, waving, big smiles on these guys' faces, and I guess it is made a little bit sweeter by the fact that they know these guys so well. CounterLogic Gaming, though, you're seeing HotShot. You know, he's still got one more game to play with these guys, at least, tomorrow. And they got to say, okay, do you want to start the season 1 and 3?
They got to rethink their stuff a little bit.
Yeah, it seems
a lot of cheers coming from Krepo.
Oh, they're well-deserved. His team played incredibly well. He made a lot of good choices and a lot of really good plays. So both these guys actually sitting at the same standings now, 1 and 2. They've got 1 game to play tomorrow. And then you're partway done through the season at that point.
Yeah, I think this is a nice launching point for Evil Geniuses to try and take more out of the season. They were obviously playing against a CLG team that doesn't have their final roster. HotShotGG is a temporary sub for them. It did work out for CLG yesterday, but you know, EG has to keep that in mind. It feels good as a win, but they were not playing against a full roster.
That's true. They've got to make sure they keep themselves going. The other full roster teams they fought against, they did lose to. E.g., they were actually considered an underdog coming into the promotion tournament. They managed to exceed expectations there. And they managed to kind of speed themselves up in time for that match and psych themselves up. They finally had some good scrims the night before. And then coming into the season itself, they actually came in with much higher hopes. People were rating them a lot higher than they were in the promotion tournament, saying they had a really good shot here. And that kind of fell a lot short. It's like a Vulcan sort of thing, where the expectation goes the other way of the actual reality. Yeah,
a couple of things went their way that game very early on. I think even though they gave up a lot of farm to Doublelift early, Yellowpete and Krepo held their own against CLG's bottom lane, which is quite a task considering Cloud9's bottom lane struggled previously earlier on today.
True.
And then just the rotations from Evil Geniuses consistently catching out CLG at Dragon Fights gave their what were previously struggling solo laners fantastic starts in the game. And if Pobelter and InnoX know how to do one thing, since they're mainly solo queue players, it's play with a lead and snowball ahead in the game.
Yeah.
And they were very strong at doing that against CLG.
Did a wonderful job of bullying out their lanes and doing a lot of good things in the match. And of course, it saddens me a little bit. Also, you talked about InnoX and doing a better job. He played one of the more orthodox top laners that had a much better result.
I know. Like, he likes to play the unconventional things, but now his team might be fighting against him. It'll be very interesting to see later in the season whether InnoX keeps doing unconventional stuff or they kind of force him onto the stuff that everyone else is playing. Because that's where, so far, 100% of their victories have came from.
That's true. Well, we'll see what these guys do. But, of course, we do have more action coming up today. When we come back, Riv and Kobe will sit down with the evil genius Krepo. Then Coast attempts to sail away with a win against Nientonsoh in our 5th